And so meditation is just a process of training ourselves how to focus. And if you want to be successful, you have to learn how to focus. Focus and discipline, if we have these things, we can consistently put energy into where we want to and water the parts of the garden that we want to. And anything that you water will grow. Well, meditation has a lot more practical benefits than esoteric.
I wanted to be a millionaire and change the world at such an early age that when I awakened at 21, I binned everything I had. Because I realised that what I was chasing, which was the money and the fame and the success, was just me being complete and happy and having what I thought was life's achievement, which is money, fame and success. And it's not about money, success or fame. It's about just humans and community and people. And I luckily learnt that where I didn't have to go to the top to crumble. I learnt here with nothing, but I also learnt the skills of still have to try and get there.
I have a personal belief that we are simply attuning to thoughts as radio frequencies, so to speak. That's why there's so many stories of people who, like Edison invented the light bulb, but someone else had invented the light bulb, and some people say Edison stole it. But all of these people working on the airplane at the same time, the Wright brothers are the ones who get the credit for it, but it was happening around the world. So there's these we look at ancient civilizations that you see the flower of life all over the world in places that they're not supposed to have been able to have any communication. How does that happen? And I do think it's just wavelengths of information, and those wavelengths aren't original thought. So it's not even, as I meditate, I'm starting to think original thoughts. I'm actually just attuning to, again, a radio station that's always playing. That radio station is playing right now of abundant thought.
Just quickly, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who still listens to the podcast. I started 4 years ago, and since then I've had over 1 million downloads. I get 5,000 downloads per month, and I've had over 200 different guests. So a massive thank you to everyone who still listens. If you could please do me a favour, if you could rate and review the podcast, that would be amazing, because it helps get the podcast out to new, conscious people like yourself. And my goal is to awaken as many people around the world. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's YesKingOliver, should you wish to see what I get up to on my day-to-day moments. Back to the episode.
So I've recently moved into a conscious community, and growing up I had no friends, and I just led this life of just all about me, going out to get exactly what I want. And I've come to this community and I've never felt so home. And I realised that one of the things that I was missing growing up was friends. And when I look around and I see such loneliness in the world, I see that what we're also all missing is that connection. And it doesn't have to necessarily mean individual strong connections. Just being in a community with other people, even though you may not know them really, really well, like your family members, just having them all there to be a part of your day-to-day experience is something that I'm really loving, and realising that I missed growing up. And it's the secret ingredient for longevity, I think.
Yeah, well, when you see all the blue zones, right? These areas of the world where people live abnormally longer than other areas of the world. They have the most centurions, the people who live to at least 100 years old. The one common denominator amongst all of them is community. Living in a feeling of community, having friends, having relationships that really matter is one of the most important, if not the most important factor for people's happiness and also just health.
Yeah, a lot of people, they may have big house, they may have money, they may have a really great partnership with their life partner, or they may have really great children, but they haven't got a group of friends that they feel like they're a part of and they can share their experiences with on a day-to-day basis. That is something that is slowly being forgotten. We've come from tribes, and not everyone knows each individual member in the tribe to a really high level. And now we're just sort of closing in with smaller groups of people. And it's all now about like a house and a family and a dog and a kid, like my 2 children and my 2 dogs, and maybe the neighbour might come around for a cup of tea and a barbecue. And it's like we're forgetting to just connect with our neighbours. And that's something that is changing in this world, I think, where more and more people are realising that they're becoming lonely and there's a secret ingredient missing. And despite having lots of health obsessions like grounding and fluoride toothpaste being eliminated from your diet, we're missing that secret ingredient that we've had before all of this stuff and all these fads online, which is people and community.
Well, it's interesting because we've sort of created a system in which the highest attained success is attached to isolation. You know, when you look at people, I've spoken about this before, but the idea of you're so successful you can buy your own private island. And it's sort of, when did buying an island so you could be away from everyone become the ultimate sign of success? And you look at these houses in the gated communities where you have a gate to get into the community, and then the houses have gates where you can't barely even see the houses. You have no idea who lives there. A lot of these houses, by the way, are the 5th house of someone, so no one actually lives there. And I think we've just created systems that reward or create isolation as a reward or put it on this pedestal. And then that's very tricky because you're combining that mentality, which has been the case now for a while, but you combine that mentality with the rise of social media. And so social media is a tool that also can connect us and create a opportunities for communities to grow, for you to meet people, for you to expand your ways of thinking. And yet, if we still are holding the idea of success tied to isolation, then social media will just be another tool used to get us into isolation. And I think we're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, I think it's Elon Musk bought the house next door to him so he didn't have neighbours, and then Jeff Bezos just recently bought his estate or something because he doesn't want to be close to people. And I was thinking the other day, I want to be successful and have money, and what comes with that is spending a lot of time by yourself building your own empire in your room. And we forget like the real world where they just go into the pub, communicating with their friends, and they may not have as much money, but they seem to be or can be more happy. And I longed for this massive house growing up, like you said about the gates and my house. No one liked me growing up, so you're not going to come in my gate. And then I just visioned like this, me being lonely in this big, huge house. And it's just like, well, actually what I want is people. And I think a lot of people who become successful, they were loners as a kid, or they're trying to strive for something, for like a status, to prove to somebody like a parent or become worthy in a friendship group of, I bet you'd wish you'd like, invite me to your parties now. And then you do a full circle, most people do. And then you get to that point and then you come back down and realise actually it wasn't the money or the success or the fame, it was just feeling this wholeness, which is within. But you realise that when you go through the journey of that wasn't it.
And as someone who's had my run with a certain level of money or notoriety or virality or fame or whatever you want to call it, nowhere near celebrity levels, but in my own circles, I came into becoming a millionaire and then also going viral before a lot of my friends. And so that at the time when all that happened, I got to see the other side of it that a lot of people never actually experience too, which there's definitely a sense of loneliness. And for me, and I hear this commonly amongst wealthy people, for example, is you don't know who's around for the wealth and who's around for you. You start to question whether people would stick around if you weren't paying for things or if you didn't create opportunities, and then suddenly I have even some of my clients that I work with who are highly successful, they will talk about the need to pay for people's flights to come to their birthday parties or pay for their, there's a sense of obligation, and that sense of obligation can very quickly turn into resentment and it contribute to also that feeling of isolation and separation.
Yeah. Yeah, and also you become more paranoid of who's around for what, as opposed to just seeing them as a human being, just playing frisbee with them in the park. You've constantly got this filter on, and almost like fight or flight mode is always in. Who's there, behind, trying to get this, trying to get that. And fortunately for me, I wanted to be a millionaire and change the world at such an early age that when I awakened at 21, I binned everything I had. Because I realised that what I was chasing, which was the money and the fame and the success, was just me being complete and happy and having what I thought was life's achievement, which is money, fame and success. Binned everything. Success was just too much for me. I just couldn't cope. I binned everything. I just had a bed.
What was the level of success you had hit at 21 that made you realize that?
Nothing. I was just chasing like this new business idea, this new social media website. I was always creating, desperate to like go back to school and be like, oh, I've just created a social media app, and I was doing so much stuff and didn't have enough people or money or time to help me. And I just like lost everything, just broke down, and then it was just, I binned everything. It was just too much success, and everything was just...
So it was just burnout. You just burnt
just
out.
burnout, yeah.
Interesting.
And then I imagine what Jesus would have had and how happy he was, just in a cave. So I wanted to go back to that point, basically just having a bed. And then I had to ground myself of, it's not money, success and fame that I want. It was just happiness and being liked at school and having friends and being invited to places. And that would have been a compensation of, yeah, fuck you, but you know, wish you'd be my friend now, turning up in a Lamborghini. And then you listen to the stories of most successful people. It's all very similar. And it's not about money, success or fame. It's about just humans and community and people. And I luckily learnt that where I didn't have to go to the top to crumble. I learnt here with nothing, but I also learnt the skills of still have to try and get there.
My experience was hitting my first mountaintop at 18. Yeah, I had, at 18 years old, so when I entered into high school, and I went to I don't know your listeners, but I'm American.
Most American.
And the American high school I went to was very archetypal, the way that you see it in movies. So it was 3,000 students. You had the drama kids and the band kids and the jocks and you did have that. And so you also have the popular kids and you have the desire to achieve what you see in the movies, basically. And so being the most popular kid in school, and that's represented by a number of different factors. But for me, I checked all of the boxes. Whatever factors you would consider being success as a high schooler, from academic scholarships to college and honor society to varsity and multiple sports to elected this, and then eventually I won Homecoming King, which is the popularity contest where I literally had a crown put on my head. I rode around on a float through the city with the queen and like a whole procession. And so I tell Brits this and they think it's hilarious and ridiculous, and it is in many ways, but to a 13-year-old entering into a high school and looking around and going, I'm small, I'm not attractive, I'm not cool. What's the mountaintop of this situation? To arrive at that mountaintop by the time I hit 18 years old and realizing how empty I felt was an eye-opener. And to your point, a lot of people don't hit that until they're 45 and they've done like you said, they have the house and they have the 2 dogs and the 2 kids and they have their career and they did everything that everyone ever told them to, and they're sitting there going, I'm not happy. And so for me, I don't know, nature, nurture, divine intervention, but at 18 years old, I said, I did everything they told me to do, everything the movies show, and I'm not happy. And so that kick started me on this journey of going, well, what is happiness? How do I become happy? And that little crack, and I think this is important for everyone listening to understand, is you don't need this life-altering event. All you need is a little crack in where they say the light gets in, where it was suddenly this doesn't add up. Something doesn't quite add up. And instead of just saying, oh, it's okay, I'll just keep going, I said, I need to explore a little bit different avenues than what they've told me to up until this point. And I think anyone who's feeling that something's not quite adding up about what I've been told or what I believe to be the path, something doesn't feel right, something isn't quite bringing me this feeling I'm chasing, start to question it.
So I had Tourette's growing up from 12 to 21, and I was on medication my whole school years. And I realised that the twitching was me excessively thinking and trying to work out what life is. You're telling me this, but actually I'm seeing this. I was connected to source, but yet outside environment was connected to this made-up system. And so I kept going into my head, analysing, processing, trying to understand everything that I lived in my head. So the more I was thinking, the more I was twitching. Medication slowed my brain down, twitching stopped, medication works. And so when I was 21, I came off the medication, and then I literally was able to process all 10 years of thoughts within 3 weeks. And then I meditated non-stop for 3 weeks, where each time a thought would come into my brain, I just wouldn't give it time and energy. And it was a process that happened for 3 weeks, where there was just thought after thought after thought. And rather than focusing on it and giving it time and spending hours on a thought, I just stopped. And day after day, as I woke up, less and less and less thoughts came in, because that part of the brain that was just super
Hyperactive.
charged was just dying down.
But how did you find meditation? Because at 21 years old, I didn't find meditation.
So someone
How
told
old are
me,
you now?
I'm 32.
Okay, so I'm a bit older. So meditation is much more widely around now. I'm 40, so.
So I didn't know it was called meditation. I used to just lie on the floor, literally during the night, whilst everyone was asleep, and I just listened to the clock tick. And by focusing on the clock ticking, I was in silence and in meditation and just awareness for the first time ever. Rather than thinking, it was just... And as a result of going into that state, I was able to make like my computer turn on and lights flicker, because I was entering such a frequency that was able to tune into all the stuff around me. And then I thought my grandma's spirit ghost came for me, because I had nobody. I was like, at the end of like wanting to die, please God, just help me. And then I believe my grandma came for me, the door flew open, and then she turned the computer on to confirm that she was here. And really now I realise that was just me focusing on where I thought she was, waiting for a response. I would say in my head, Grandma, is everything going to be okay? Am I going to get through this? And that period of waiting, which could have been 5 minutes, I would go into this deep meditation, didn't know it's called meditation, but going into that state of silence, the computer would turn on, I get the confirmation, and I go to sleep knowing that I was comforted. But the secret was what made me realise the shit that I had learnt my whole life. It's there. No one else knew, but they're telling me it. And I was always doing meditation, I just didn't know what it was called.
Yeah.
Had no clue.
Yeah, I think that one of the things from a sort of esoteric spiritual perspective to remember is right now our life, this conversation for us is the focal point of our consciousness, right? This is where our consciousness is currently focused in space-time. And there are other focal points, but it's channeled here. And I think that when we start to take more conscious control of that mechanism, of the aperture of our consciousness and where that light shines, we start to tap into a realm of what I call magic, just that is available to us because we are not just the puppet, we're the one also pulling the strings. And most people are just the puppet, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but I find it to be more enjoyable to be able to pull the strings more consciously. And I think a lot of my kind of esoteric pursuits have been in the direction of how do I become not just the one that's in the program, but helping to write the program itself. And that led to many, many, many years of studying and continued study of the energetics, because I think it's all energetics ultimately. And the more we understand about that and those parameters, the more we can make what people think are miracles happen, even turning computers on from across the room, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I realise now through understanding human design that, I have an open headspace,
Yeah.
whatever that means. And so growing up, I was just attracting everything and everyone's thoughts and everyone's energy and every program that was out there. I was just absorbing it all. And the Tourette's was just me trying to work all this shit out and just order it and what is this? Hang on, just got to deal with this first. And more and more and more and more come, burnout. And I realised that because thoughts don't end, there's only one way to solve this. Meditate so much that I don't think anymore. But when I need to think, I've also got the wisdom and the intellect and knowledge to think from listening and learning and reading. But as you say, I'm now in control of the puppet, whereas before, the puppet was just controlling me. And everyone can do that, I believe, through sitting down and attempting to meditate and just letting all the thoughts come through and just pushing them away. People think it's about just being in silence all the time, and actually it's not. It's just becoming aware of, I'm not giving you energy and time. And keep doing that enough, I call it a child coming up to the parent and going, hey, my mummy, can I have an ice cream? If you keep saying no long enough, the child will get bored and go somewhere else. But it's just giving that time long enough.
Yeah, it's meditation for many people who don't meditate has this connotation attached to it somehow of reaching a samadhi state every time you meditate. And I think that at the end of the day, I see meditation more practically as going to the gym for your mind.
Yes.
It's just, okay, I have to get better at not letting thoughts overtake me and being in control of my focus. Because in today's day and age, with social media and the amount of advertisements we see all on the road and everywhere, and just there's so much stimulus that everyone's attention span now is seconds. And that means another way of saying that is that people aren't able to focus for very long. And so meditation is just a process of training ourselves how to focus. And if you want to be successful, you have to learn how to focus. Focus and discipline, which discipline is really focus in action. So if we have these things, we can consistently put energy into where we want to and water the parts of the garden that we want to. And anything that you water will grow. So I think that for a lot of people, meditation has a lot more practical benefits than esoteric.
Yeah. With everything how the world is, it's not going to change. But learning to meditate means that we can still be in environments that are so overstimulating. We're choosing whether or not we buy that thing that's on the advert, rather than just thinking about a pair of trainers and then suddenly we're buying them, not knowing where we saw the ad. Meditating for me is me seeing that ad, knowing that, okay, I like the trainers, I may get it or not. So when I'm buying the trainers, I'm buying it on my terms, but because, it was planted in my brain.
Yeah, I don't know how much is pre-planted versus fresh thought at this stage. There's a lot of people, I have several friends who are really, you speak about human design, but Richard Rudd, who does Gene Keys, and some of my other friends that I really look up to, many of them believe this is far more fate than free will, that a lot of this is already predetermined and we're just writing it out. And so when you think about what's been planted in our minds, we have the societal aspects of what we've seen as an advertisement or people have talked about subliminally that we're not even aware of. And there's also the sort of what's already written in the stars, what's already destined for us, and how much of this are we truly creating versus just living.
Do you think that the more you meditate, that you reach a higher frequency and you start tuning into other people who have also gone up there? So, for example, as you raise your vibration, you often chase success and money and fame or whatever, certain vibration you've got to be to come up there. And as you meditate, your energy raises, you become that vibration, so you're basically tuning into their thoughts versus creating those thoughts completely from scratch. So if somebody in the middle of the jungle who didn't know about any of this man-made materialistic stuff, meditated so much that became the frequency of, you know, Sadhguru, monk, Buddha, Jay Shetty, us, whatever, and all of our thoughts are in the ether. That person's now tuning into all of our thoughts in the jungle. They're not his thoughts, they're our thoughts.
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe in original thought. So I think that if we look at thought as energy, because it does, right? Our thoughts put out electromagnetic signals. So thought is energy. And so energy can neither be created nor destroyed, right? And so that means that we're bringing that energy from somewhere and then it's going out and we're transmuting it and everything. But I have a personal belief that we are simply attuning to thoughts as radio frequencies, so to speak. That's why there's so many stories of people who, like Edison invented the light bulb, but someone else was actually had invented the light bulb, and some people will say Edison stole it. But you have all of these people working on the airplane at the same time. The Wright brothers are the ones who get the credit for it, but it was happening around the world. So there's these, we look at ancient civilizations that you see the flower of life all over the world in places that they're not supposed to have been able to have any communication. How does that happen? And I do think it's just wavelengths of information, and those wavelengths aren't original thought. So it's not even, as I meditate, I'm starting to think original thoughts. I'm actually just attuning to, again, a radio station that's always playing. That radio station is playing right now of abundant thought, or that radio station is playing right now of coherent oneness thought. It's there. I just am not currently attuned to it, or not paying attention to it, or not capable of reaching it, or whatever it might be. And so I think as I've developed that sort of perspective, it's helped me, because now it's not something that's unattainable. It's just a matter of, am I willing to do the work to calibrate to that radio frequency? Because there are some, if you move in this direction to radio station 100.1, it's taking you further away from radio station 88.8. And so which one is the one you want is a far more important question than which one can you get to.
Yeah, so like, you know, the pyramids around the world, there was pyramids being built, and ancient civilization of, like, you know, the massive huge stones being put on each other, and they're like perfectly sliced and cut. How do they get them up there? How do they get them there? And it's like, well, how can they all be doing this in different parts of the world where there was, like, say, no boats and planes and cars back then? Definitely tuning into one main source of infinite wisdom. The same as people think that, you know, if there is aliens, then it's just years and years and years and years ago, people like Elon Musk getting fed up of the Earth, wanting to go to Mars, and then, you know, 1,000 years later, we're doing the same thing. And then when people go to Mars, there'll be the aliens of the future, you know, and they'll be looking down on Earth like, oh, here we go again. Going on phones, polluting the ocean, eating crappy food. They're going to start to go to Mars, and by that point, there'll be another planet. It's not Mars, it's another one. And it's just like this constant cycle, you know?
Yeah, there's many ancient texts that talk about several restarts of civilization. And there's some theories that we are actually, what is it? Is it terraforma or whatever, where we, beyond the Antarctic wall or whatever, that there's other civilizations and our current civilization. Because I don't know if you've heard this, but there's several theories about how our current form of existence is either a simulation or a test or a whatever. And again, one of the theories that I think is fun is that there are more sections of the globe beyond the Antarctic wall, essentially, which I think usually is based off of flat earthers who are going to talk about that. But the idea being that there are other civilizations, and then ours and the globe that we know is actually just one section of it. And again, I'm not saying I even believe that, or I'm just pointing out that mythology has consistently said that humans have gone through many iterations. And when you look at the pyramids, I don't know if have you been to Egypt?
Oh yeah.
So I've been 3 times, and every time I go, you look at this stuff and you think there's just absolutely no way. There's no way that they used to tell us it was slaves with ropes and logs, and you're just, no, I promise you, not. Go see it for yourself and realize that's not how they did it. And it's not just the pyramids. There's so many other sites, sacred sites there, where you go, nope, that's not how they did it. And they just discovered, I'm not sure if you're aware, they just discovered these massive cylinders underneath the pyramids. Nope. So they've used radar technology, LODAR, whatever, to discover 6 huge cylinders that go like 640 meters down, so further down than up the pyramid. And in Egypt, underneath the Great Pyramid. So this discovery, you go, how's that even possible? And so I'm pointing this out as someone who's been there several times to say that there was technology that allowed them to do that. We make a false assumption, which is that if you move forward in time, that you move forward in progress technologically and in consciousness. That is a assumption or a belief system that there's evidence actually that goes against that, where you could move forward in time, but actually move backwards in technology or in consciousness. This could be due to a major catastrophic event, a asteroid hitting or whatever, or it could be due to something human, such as when they burned the Library of Alexandria and we lost insane amounts of information, and when they killed all of the wisdom keepers in ancient Egypt, when you had the kind of second dynastic kind of period where it became more about science and less about the esoterics. We've seen major losses of information. And then if you look at what's possible in terms of evolution. And so I think if you let go of the idea that moving forward in time means progress and that it's possible we could go backwards, then suddenly it opens up the possibility that they had technologies that were just far, I'm not even going to call them superior, because I imagine in some ways they were superior. There's pros and cons, right? But different, that allowed them to do things that we can't do.
You know, like we're all tuned into the same source, right? Imagine that you go back millions of years and it's just like this full circle and this full circle again. So all this technology that we're starting to tune into was technology that people created thousands of years ago, and they tuned into technology created 1,000 years before that. It's just this infinite loop of resetting society, and whether the ice age wipes us out, whether there's an electrical storm that resets the energy grid where we can't tune in like we used to, drought, whatever. What if we're just constantly kind of resetting life and rebuilding again, and it's just that same cycle over and over and over again? And like the technologies before, there was a computer found in the ocean that when the scientists studied it, it was like as smart as a MacBook, you know? And when you think about computers, it's just like metals and stuff put together to tune into stuff. Pretty easy. When, you know, Bill Gates made the computer back in the day, you know, it's pretty easy if you know what you're doing. And we're just adapting from that. How cool would it be if we're just recycling everything? Like people going to space, it's just the aliens up there are just Elon Musk's from thousands of years ago, and we're just recycling the wisdom of everything, and there's no new thought, it's just tuning in to the grid.
Again, and the expression, when you think about these ancient civilizations and how much of it has lived as long as it has, and you were to think about our current societies in the city of London or whatever, if you were to pass 10,000 years, right, and you just kind of left it, none of this exists.
Yep.
This is all gone. This is all gone. If you were to have, and so when you look at the pyramids, for example, what do we have in modern society that's going to last the test of time like that? What like Göbekli Tepe, or Machu Picchu? What do we have now? We have our steel and our concrete and whatever. That's all gone. You can see nature, even just trees growing up through sidewalks, and it would all be gone. And I think that's really interesting, because we, in whatever iteration of human we are now, are a digital species. We are becoming more and more synonymous with digital technology. And I think that as you look at Neuralink and these things that are on the horizon, where people are already putting microchips into their bodies and stuff, you can make the argument that we've already merged our consciousness with technology. We have cell phones. I was talking to someone the other day. I can't get anywhere without GPS now, without navigation. Even places I've been before, I still just put it into the navigation when I'm going for whatever reason, even if it can just tell me for the traffic or something.
Yes.
And so when I need to figure something out, I ask ChatGPT. Used to be just Google. When I want to connect with someone, I just immediately send them a text, and they're going to immediately get that text around the world, and we're connected in a moment. And that's not too far off from telepathy. We have a medium of exchange, but for me to just go, I have this thought, and immediately get it to you, and you immediately receive it, is telepathy in a certain way. You could make kind of the argument for it, at least. And so I just find that if we are a species that is moving in the direction of becoming more and more digital, I'm not sure what lasts. And I'm not sure what the end game is. And from my understanding of transhumanism, there are people who believe we will be able to upload our consciousness into computers and therefore live forever. That's sort of the idea. We will no longer become biological, because biology is our flaw that we are overcoming, because our consciousness itself is able to be uploaded into digital mediums. And so I don't know. It's fascinating to observe. I kind of sit back and have taken on the viewpoint that love your life. Whatever brings you joy and happiness, as long as it's not causing harm to others, that's why I'm here.
So do you believe consciousness is in the ether or in the physical body? For example, if you take away this body, are we still aware of everything? Like if you close your eyes and you meditate, but you can't feel anything, is that consciousness? Or are we only feeling that awareness because we have that body to process it? And if the body's not there, are we still feeling it? And that will link to an AI question, which is essentially, if I ask you a question, you've got an answer, you're conscious. If I ask AI a question, it gives me an answer. Does that mean it's conscious? But we've programmed it with all of our information. And without us programming it, or programming it even more, will it still have future answers that we've not yet worked out and programmed it? Which means it's conscious in the body.
Well, it's whether or not we have general intelligence versus artificial intelligence. The difference being one can learn on its own. And so with the idea for a lot of people around artificial intelligence is we have this thing that basically accesses a store of information. And it goes to that store of information and it gets you the answer to your question from that store of information. The evolution of that general intelligence would be it is able to figure out the problem on its own, accessing and essentially creating what you would call new thought, right? It discoveries. It discovered something. It figured out the way Einstein figured out theory of relativity. Well, then you have computers that are now discovering new thought that humans have not, which there's this famous thing with the AI that plays Go, which Go is this game that has exponentially more permutations of it than chess. It's far more advanced in terms of what can happen in a game. And it made a move, this thing made a move that all of the experts, no one had seen before. It was just, what is this move? What just happened? And I don't know the game of Go well enough to understand the craziness of the move, but it changed the way that people play the game. No humans had done it. So you could make the argument we're already there, where it's doing things that humans just haven't even thought to do. Therefore, it's already outside the realm of human consciousness. It's its own new boundaryless thing. And I think the question that's very interesting is, so when you have a thought, what is happening is you are firing electrical impulses in your brain, connecting different neurons in your brain. Okay. So even if you are meditating and you're hitting this space of oneness and you feel whatever, there is a physiological response in your body attached to that. You're not having that separate from the body. And this is very important. You do not have an experience, I don't care how spiritual it is, that will not have a physiological component. If you were in the craziest ayahuasca ceremony or meditation, but you were in an MRI machine and it was reading all of your things, and you were hooked up to your blood pressure would be dropping, your heart rate would be slowing down, your breathing rate, your respiratory rate, there would be things happening physiologically. And there would be electrical impulses firing in the brain in new and different ways. And so my question for people listening is, do you believe that your consciousness requires a body? And if you don't, most people would say, no, my consciousness doesn't require this body. Okay, well then all of the physical responses to your meditation that you feel, slowing down the heart rate and all that stuff, none of that actually matters. That's just the human part of you experiencing that. The consciousness is where your mind goes. Is that what we're talking about? Because then that would be more closely linked to the electrical impulses that are happening in your brain. And if, like some people believe, you can take all of your thought and all of your consciousness and all of those crazy spiritual experiences, and you can say that they are electrical impulses in your brain, then you could make the argument that you could have all of them as a computer.
If you had one day left to live, what is the one thing that you would tell the rest of the world?
Treat yourself like someone you love.
So, for example, treat yourself like someone you love.
Yeah. Yeah, it's...
Fine. Expand.
I believe that all issues we face on the planet are issues of consciousness, meaning we either don't understand how to fix them, or more often than not, we are trying to solve them from the same level of consciousness that created them. So we talked earlier about separation. If we are in a mindset of separation and individualization, how do we expect to solve the problem of separation and individuation? It requires a stepping outside the paradigm and the lens in which we're viewing the problem. That's a very interesting one, because if we can, so much of the problems on this planet, for example, come from a belief system that we're in a zero-sum game. And for people who don't understand what that means, it means that there's one apple, and if you have the apple, I have zero. And in order for me to have an apple, I need to take the apple from you. That's a finite resources, zero-sum game. To solve for that problem and say, okay, how do we take this one apple and we both eat, right? In a zero-sum game, it's I take it from you, you take it from me, or we cut it in half. That's basically it. But if you zoom out and say, okay, well, I'm playing by the rules that there's only one apple, but what if I change the rules and I say, okay, we can plant the seeds and grow an apple tree? Some people are going to say, well, that's not the rules. It's like, great, well, you're right. If we play by those rules, there's one apple and only one of us gets it. But if we just go, we can take those seeds and plant it. Or if I go way outside that and I go, actually, let's take that apple and trade it with the person for 2 oranges. And do you see what I'm saying? It's just saying, okay, the rules, if I only view them through the rules, one of us is getting the apple. I have to view the game differently in order to come up with different solutions. And that's our government systems, our medical systems, our education systems. Most people are looking at how to solve these problems from within the rules, but the systems were created from a level of consciousness of zero sum, that as long as we exist in that, there will always be winners and losers. And I am in the business for myself and for my clients and for my programs, and everyone I talk to or when I'm on a podcast is going, the best thing I think that we can do is expand the paradigm in which we're living in, expand the way that we view the world, change the rules of the game by seeing them as malleable. And so treating yourself like someone you love, which is how I got here, but treat yourself like someone you love comes from the idea that all of the primary issues that keep us stuck in zero sum come from a lack of self-love. I believe that like people who love themselves don't go and rape and kill and pillage. People who actually love themselves don't go and create businesses like Monsanto and other businesses where they are actively harming human beings on this planet, knowingly lying. The big pharma systems, all of that stuff are people who are in deep fear and live in a scarcity mindset and are chasing money and profit as a way of trying to find a sense of safety and security and pleasure or whatever it is. And they're selling their souls. I really believe that. And so to me, helping people think of how to treat themselves like the people they love will cause them to start to love themselves more deeply, develop a more intimate relationship with themselves, which will open up compassion to other people, and then the snowball effect really happens at that point.
Absolutely.
It was a long rant, but I hope it made sense. I hope it made sense.
It makes perfect sense. Is there anything you want to promote or plug before we wrap up?
I have I'm not sure when this is coming out exactly, but in May of 2025, I'm releasing a free, what I call soul scavenger hunt. And a lot of people are in this place where they know they want to change something. Mm-hmm. They feel it. There's a transition happening, but they just don't know what direction to move or where to look. So I've created a very simple PDF journey that is fun, and it's artistic, and it's creative, and you can do it in less than 2 hours. That helps you identify what is my soul calling me towards, and how can I actually start to move in that direction. And so that's for free, and that's the only thing that I want people. I created it because I want people to have it. I think more people living their purpose is a good thing for everyone. So if you're listening to this, you can probably find it at my Instagram, which is adam.roa, R-O-A, or on my website, adamroa.com.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please remember to subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, like the episode, and comment below. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's YesKingOliver. Take a look at the other videos to your side. And if you just want to listen to this podcast, you can do so on Apple and Spotify and most other platforms by going to talkwitholiver.com.